Coming up on Access Tech Live.
Apple announces its new M3 processors and new MacBook Pros. Nestle partners with NaviLens for accessible packaging. And Apple's head of accessibility, Sarah Herrlinger, joins us.
This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo. The latest in tech and accessibility every week. Follow us and get involved now at Access Tech Live.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Access Tech Live. I am Stephen Scott, and with me as always we have Marc Aflalo joining me from Montreal, Canada. I am in Glasgow, Scotland, and another busy week, Marc, another big week for tech news.
I thought it was over. I thought we would be done with announcements. Everybody got their holiday schedules all set with their gear, but no, Apple has to announce some more stuff, and we're going to talk all about it in the news today, and we're going to break it down for you a bit later on. It's a little bit of an Apple-centric show today. I'm sorry, guys, in advance, but I think you'll survive.
But you know what? It's hard not to, right? Because we have an incredible conversation today with Apple's Sarah Herrlinger. She is joining us to talk all about accessibility at Apple and really deep diving into some of the big features in Apple products across the range, from the Mac to the iPhone to the Apple Watch, and really deep diving into the specific features, especially the new ones that have come out in iOS 17, iPadOS, and across the range. A lot of people don't realize, Marc, the amount of accessibility features that exist within the products and that actually exist across the range of products, right? So your Mac has just as many accessibility functions in it as, say, the iPhone does. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
No, definitely not. And I think that, conversations with Sarah Herrlinger, which don't happen very often. You go search her name online, you're not going to find much, except with us mostly, are fun because we dive into some of the features that we didn't know existed, and we dive into some of the other ones that we've heard of and find out different ways people are using them, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. And of course, as you say, we're going to break down all of Apple's Scary Fast event. It certainly was scary fast. It was 30 minutes, but we'll get to that. Coming up, we will, of course, delve into all of that. But first, let's catch up with the headlines. And I imagine Apple will probably feature quite strongly. Here's Marc.
Now, Access Tech Live headlines.
Oh, a little bit strongly, Stephen. Apple made a rare evening announcement earlier this week, Monday night to be exact, all decked out for Halloween. The 30-minute spooky event was short and sweet, but it debuted the company's latest processors, the M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max.
With 3nm technology, a next-generation GPU architecture, a higher performance CPU, faster neural engine, and support for even more unified memory, they're the most advanced chips ever built for a personal computer.
As Apple's Senior Vice President of Hardware Engineering, John Turnus, the new chips offer a faster, more efficient CPU, upgraded graphics processing, and make even gaming stand out, which is pretty cool. Now, following the chip announcement, Apple unveiled the first new computers to feature the new processors. Here's Apple's Vice President, again, of Hardware Engineering, John Turnus.
Well, tonight, thanks to the efficiency of Apple Silicon, we're giving iMac a giant leap in performance while keeping the same impossibly thin design and spectrum of 7 vibrant colors. With M3, iMac is up to 2 times faster than iMac with M1. And you'll feel its speed and power in everything you do, from multitasking across everyday productivity apps to exploring creative passions like editing high-resolution photos or multiple streams of 4K video.
The 24-inch iMac got its first update in a long time, including not only M3 chips, but also a 4.5K Retina display, support for Wi-Fi 6E, and an upgraded 1080p webcam. The new iMac started $16.99 Canadian and can be pre-ordered today with availability starting next week, November the 7th. Apple is also updating the MacBook Pros to include the new M3 processors. Here's Kate Bergeron, Apple's VP of Hardware Engineering.
With the power of the M3 family of chips, up to 22 hours of battery life, a stunning Liquid Retina XDR display, and advanced connectivity, there's simply no other laptop like MacBook Pro.
Oh, definitely not. Both the 14 and 16-inch versions of the MacBook Pro feature a mini LED display, 1080p webcam, 22 hours of battery life, and a brand new color, space black. That's exciting, with a coating that's supposed to help reduce fingerprints. We'll see that when we get our hands on it. Good old-fashioned silver will also still be available. Now, both models of the MacBook Pro are available to pre-order right now and will also be available starting November 7th. It's next week. The 14-inch model starts at $20.99 Canadian. You can boost that up pretty high, which we'll talk about a bit later. Alongside the M3 Pro and M3 Max equipped MacBook Pro, Apple is releasing a cheaper 14-inch MacBook Pro model. That one comes with just the base M3 chip. Now, this one replaces the 13-inch MacBook Pro with the M2 chip that Apple released last year. This one is 60% faster and finally gets rid of that dreaded touch bar. Finally, Pringles, the chip maker, Nestle, who owns them, is collaborating with NaviLens technology to make their packaging more accessible to the visually impaired. The new packaging features NaviLens technology, which lets smartphones easily detect an on-pack code. So when you point it at the actual product, you enable playback of a label information, which is pretty cool. The first adaptive label will roll out any day now, with a complete rollout of its products by the end of 2024. And those, Stephen, are your headlines for this week.
There you go. It was a lot of chip news. In there this week, which is kind of cool. M3s and Pringles. I don't think we'd ever bring those two together in a tech show, but there you go. We did it. And that's great news. Again, it's just making products more accessible, right? And it's such a cool feature because what people don't realize with the QR code that you get from NaviLens is that the iPhone or the Android phone that's scanning for it can actually see it from quite a distance. So you could be walking down the aisle of a superstore and you'd be able to hold your phone up and it would be able to tell you the products in that aisle. So it's super cool.
That's very cool. One of the things we didn't talk about, and we can talk about it later, the Apple event, and the biggest buzz from the Apple event this week wasn't just the new products, but it was the fact that right at the end, there was a little thing on the screen that said this event was filmed entirely on an iPhone and edited on a Mac. And that's the takeaway that everybody's talking about in the tech space. But it is pretty cool that they're actually using their own devices and kind of putting the proof where the pudding is and showing that, you can film a keynote. Granted, there was a little bit of assistance, which we could talk about a bit later.
Yeah, I think so. I thought the big takeaway was space black. But anyway, we'll get to all that. We're going to break all that down a bit later. I want to move on to our question of the day today because this is a great question. And we've already been getting responses online. I imagine we're going to have so many by the end of the show. The question this week is, what one piece of movie tech from our past do you wish came true? That's such a great question, right? It could be absolutely anything. It could be the flying car, Marty McFly's hoverboard and Back to the Future. I mean, there's lots of options, right?
Oh, Tony Stark's transparent cell phone. I mean, there's so many options. And here's the trick, guys, okay? If you follow us on social media at Access Tech Live, you'll find out about the question a couple days before the show is here live. So you'll be able to get involved and get in on the show and actually tell us what your opinion is. Lots of really cool ideas coming in, which we'll definitely get to later on. So again, the question of the week this week is, what is the one piece of movie tech from our past? Of course, it could be all of our past, collective pasts. Do you wish came true? It could be the flying car. Could be Marty McFly's hoverboard from Back to the Future, maybe Tony Stark's transparent cell phone. Email us, feedback at accesstechlive.com. Connect on all social media at Access Tech Live, and we will get to those questions a bit later on the show. But first, we take a quick break here at Access Tech Live and come back with part one of our conversation with Apple's Sarah Herrlinger. Stick around.
We want to hear from you. Follow us on social media and get involved at Access Tech Live. We'll be right back. Latest in tech and accessibility. This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Welcome back to the show. Now, Apple has made headlines this week, of course, with the new M3 chips, but it continues to make waves with new accessibility features in all of its latest operating systems. And we have the pleasure of welcoming Apple's Senior Director of Global Accessibility Policy and Initiatives, Sarah Herrlinger, to the show. I'll just kick off by saying welcome to our brand new show, Access Tech Live on AMI.
I am so excited to be here. Congratulations on this new platform and new opportunity.
Thank you very much. And it is great to have you here and talking all things Apple. Now, it's been a quiet few weeks, so not a lot to talk about, Sarah. I mean, we could probably wrap this up in a few minutes. You could get an early finish, right?
Oh, Stephen, if only. At Apple, we're always moving forward.
Yeah, and we have lots to talk about. I want to dive right in because, of course, everyone's talking about the iPhone 15. Oh, that action button. I am so pleased to hear about the action button. What are you going to use your action button for, or what are you currently using it for?
I have been playing around a little bit and trying out different things. So I have used it for its sort of default of turning the volume on and off. I've used it for the camera. I'm going to try out the flashlight, and then I'm going to, figure out my favorite accessibility feature and probably keep it there for the long run.
That is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about all the detection features under magnifier that I could just have at my hand. So that is absolutely fantastic, yeah. Lots of people are excited, of course, about the action button and indeed iPhone 15. And of course, again, lots and lots of interesting accessibility features to talk to you about. Let's dive right in with, I think live speech is a really interesting area for a lot of people. Of course, personal voice caught the headlines earlier in the year. Everyone is interested in this, of course, with the rise of artificial intelligence, more and more of it coming in on our products. Tell us about live speech, though, and what it does.
Yeah, so live speech is a feature that's built to support individuals who are non-speaking. And the idea behind it is that it is the ability to be able to type whatever you want to say. So you can seamlessly in-person conversations on a phone or FaceTime call, or when you're, with someone in the moment, just be able to type out what you want to say, and then it will voice that out of the iPhone or the iPad or the Mac.
Yeah, well, absolutely. We'll come to the Mac because, yeah, personal voice is another interesting area, of course, and it's, I guess, tied in, isn't it? Because this is about creating your own voice. You can, of course, use live speech with any synthesized voice, but personal speech does exactly that. It makes it personal to the individual.
Yeah, and that's something we're really excited about. When you think about the fact that even just in one community, for individuals who have been recently diagnosed with ALS, 1 in 3 of those individuals has a chance of losing their ability to speak. So we know there are many people out there who, over time, for things like, throat, tongue cancers, all kinds of different things, may lose that ability to speak. And so this is an opportunity to be able to create your voice on your iPhone, your iPad, or your Mac. And the idea behind it is we've tried to make it as simple and easy and, in a very Apple way, private for you. It takes about 15 minutes of time. You just hold your iPhone about 6 to 10 inches from your mouth. You're presented with a whole bunch of randomly delivered phrases. So you would read through all of those. And one of the things that we really tried to do as we put this together was to work with the ALS community and find out what are some of the things that were most important for them. So there's some little nuanced things about this. For example, you don't have to do that 15 minutes all at once. You can do a few minutes, and if you get tired, stop and come back to it. We also do it in a way that as you complete one of those phrases, you don't have to tap the screen to move to the next one. It understands that you're done and moves on its own, so that if you have low muscle strength and it would be difficult to have to tap the screen each time, you can avoid doing that. But once you've done that 15 minutes of time of material, if you leave your device overnight, it does on-device processing of that voice and is available to you then the next morning. And I think that on-device part is important as well. Once again, since privacy is important to us, this is something that doesn't go to Apple. It doesn't go up onto a server. It's your voice available for you.
Yeah, and that privacy part, that is really important, isn't it? Because there are other services available that are currently in use today where, you can upload your own voice to, but, the data, the question about where the data goes is still out there. Whereas with Apple, what you're saying is that it's on device. And also, this is really important, when you're saying those phrases, when you're reading out these phrases, it's phrases that they don't often make much sense, do they? And that's the point, right? That you don't want to be saying things that would be obvious that and then therefore anybody could ask you to say and then recreate your voice. So, you've even considered that aspect. And like you say, 15 minutes, what is it, 150 phrases or so you have to complete? That's quite a lot. And again, it embeds that privacy.
Yep. Yeah, we just, in a very Apple way, we wanted to try and make this as simple and easy, relevant to the individuals who need it, but done in a way that makes them feel safe in what they're doing.
So my wife and I buy a new microwave, and we're really excited about our microwaves because, well, we can't be bothered cooking for real. So, we decided we'd get a microwave, and of course, it's not accessible. There are lots of buttons on it, and I don't know what they are. And all of a sudden, I hear about, when it was announced, of course, on Global Accessibility Awareness Day, Point and Speak. Now, for those who don't know, explain Point and Speak, and this will probably explain to you, viewer, why I'm so excited.
All right, well, before I do that, I'm going to back up just slightly to give a little bit more context to answer this question. And I would also say, who doesn't love a good microwave? So kudos to you for getting a new one. Within the Apple devices, there is an app called Magnifier. And with Magnifier, it does a lot of things. At its absolute sort of bare minimum, it is a magnifier to allow you to zoom in on physical objects around you. And so you could, the serial number on the back of a device, or a tiny thing on a medication bottle. And it can also do things by adding color filters, light with a flashlight, things like that. But within Magnifier, we also have a part that's called detection mode. And we added in detection mode in iOS 16 and iPadOS 16 as part of that Magnifier app. And it uses information from the camera and the LiDAR scanner and on-device machine learning to do a lot of really cool things. Now, there are 5 different features in detection mode that you can use all of them together. And the first one is something we actually introduced a couple of years ago called people detection, which helps you identify how far you're standing from a person. There's also door detection that helps you navigate the last few feet of your destination by telling you how far you are from a door and attributes about that door so you know what you're doing. And then scene description, which describes objects and things around you. And then the fourth is a new one that's called text detection, which speaks aloud any text on a document or a piece of mail or things like that around you. And then this gets us to our 5th element, which I'm really excited about, as I know you are, which is called Point and Speak. And so Point and Speak allows you to identify text on objects that you point to and read it out loud. So literally by pointing at the buttons on the microwave, it will tell you and read out that label. So you understand whether it's the number pad or the start button or popcorn, pizza, whatever it might be, giving you more ways to be able to interact with that device and feel confident in how you're doing it.
Yeah, rather than just where's the start, where's the stop, how far do I have to turn to get to 5 minutes, and actually not knowing about all of the other features, right? It actually makes the device more available to you. Such a simple feature, but it's so powerful, like all of these features we're talking about. Another, which is again, and I've heard mixed opinions about who this is for. I have a range of views myself, I'm sure you do, but I want to talk about assistive access, which when I heard about it, I was so excited to hear about this feature, because ultimately this is a feature that simplifies the layout, the design of the phone to make it easier to navigate. Now, this can benefit a lot of people. I'm not one of those people, Sarah, who says it's great for older people, because I think older people know their way around tech fine. I do think, though, this is for a lot of people who could really benefit from a much simpler, cleaner environment, including people like me who use VoiceOver, who are blind. So, there's lots of applications here. But what's interesting is that a lot of people are maybe going to benefit from this most on the iPad. Tell us about people who use the iPad with disabilities, because, of course, that is another area of growth, right?
Yeah, well, I think, one of the things that's important to us as we do our work is to understand that, the term disability covers a lot of different areas. There is no one single thing out there. And so we spend a lot of time really trying to build technology for very distinct groups, which may have applicability across other ones, but really there's always a focus in what we do. And with a feature like assistive access, we've built this to be an essential tool for individuals with intellectual and developmental delays, as well as their caretakers. And the idea here is that you can customize a device to be able to kind of work with the distinct and in some cases, you know, evolving needs of someone with an intellectual or cognitive disability. It's a simplified, focused interface that people can use to do what they love. And the idea behind it is it's built with much larger text, more focused choices, and really deep customization. Now, in our work in this, we've really focused this in on a few key areas. It starts with the home screen, but it also carries through to a series of apps that we focused on. One is called Calls, which is a merging of the phone app and the FaceTime app, essentially, to be a way that individuals can really get, you know, big buttons and images on the screen to be able to contact, for example, mom and dad, and really just sort of simplify things so it's just the individuals that are most important for that person to be able to contact. And then if they tap on one of those, they can choose whether they want to do a video call or an audio call. We also use this to do, you know, more tailored UIs for messages, photos, camera, and the music app, because we know that those are all some of the apps that are most used by, you know, everyone. But within these communities, they're great ways to be able to stay connected, to be creative, to be collaborative, and kind of, you know, have those elements that you really want in your life. And, you know, you mentioned this for iPad. That larger screen size can be really beneficial for individuals who want to have that very simplified, easy, larger text, all of those things that are so beneficial for someone who might have a cognitive or developmental delay. And, you know, that's obviously different from what we often find in the blind community, who benefits from a smaller screen and doesn't need that real estate. For this community, it's something that really is a great asset.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But, you know, I love the fact we're talking about simplifying, but not limiting. In no way are you limited by this. In fact, if anything, it allows you to grow more with your device. So some people who might use it as a way to get into iPhone or iPad may find it that eventually they decide to try it without assistive access and actually got on okay. Again, that's the joy of all of these features. You know, they're not locked away in a box that you need a special disability key to get into. They're for everyone. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love it too. And you know what? I love that the conversation is not over. There's still so much more with Apple's head of accessibility on Access Tech Live. We'll get to that second part of that conversation. But first, we've got to break down that Apple Scary Fast event. And we'll do it right after a quick break here on Access Tech Live.
We want to hear from you. Follow us on social media and get involved at Access Tech Live. We'll be right back. The latest in tech and accessibility. This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Hey guys, welcome back. I am Stephen Scott. Marc Aflalo is with me, and we're going to break down Apple's Scary Fast. Actually, hang on, let me do that properly. Apple's Scary Fast event. That's how you've got to do it. I think that's the it. Yeah, you've got to do all that nonsense because it was around Halloween and it was very scary and scary fast. We'll get to the fast part in a moment. I want to get to the evening part though. What was Apple doing? Because in the UK, we've just had the time change, right? So we're in winter now, which is great. And actually did help a little bit because initially it was going to be 1 a.m. in the UK. And then it turned out it was actually midnight.
Not everything is about Stephen Scott. Not everything is about Stephen. Sometimes they've got to accommodate us East Coasters. Not accommodate. You know what? It worked out perfectly. I was on a plane returning from Edmonton. I waited an hour for my bags and I still made it to the event that went by like that snap of my fingers. It was like over before it started. I don't know what was going on there. This is one of these events where I think could have been done in a press release. Sorry, Apple, but I mean, you need some opinion here. But nonetheless, it gives people something to talk about, especially the fact that they shot that whole thing on an iPhone. Can you imagine that? The whole thing on an
Yeah.
iPhone.
On an iPhone, but with, like, I don't know, $1 million worth of
Stabilization,
equipment attached
gimbals,
to it.
lighting, drones.
Yeah,
everything.
so...
Okay,
Yeah,
so next event, shot on iPhone handheld by Bob.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, get Tim to just do a selfie the next time.
Yeah.
That would be cool, right? That would work.
Yeah, then we'll definitely be excited about it. But honestly, I guess the biggest thing that Apple wanted to get out were the introduction of these new M3 chips. These are faster processors. These are processors that are built on a different architecture. There's different sizes of architecture when it comes to chip manufacturing, and this was a 3 nanometer architecture, which means physically the chips are smaller, but they could fit more on it. The rule of, basically, as technology grows and grows, it started with hard drives that were 1 megabyte that fit into a giant office, and now that fits onto your thumbnail. So this is the real reason they made this announcement, so they can kickstart the adoption of these M3 chips across their product line, which I think
is great.
Cool. But
I want to ask you about this because, look, from the geeky point of view, we all get rather excited about, M3, great. But, there's people at home saying, hang on, I've just bought a new Mac, or I've got an old Mac, maybe it's a 2017 iMac or a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air or whatever, and, they're looking at these announcements and thinking, okay, so if I upgrade, what am I getting? Because it just feels like every 5 minutes there's another new processor, there's another reason to buy another Apple product. So what's the deal here? Why is this so important an announcement?
I mean, it's important announcement because it is the natural evolution of what Apple is committing to, which is switching all their ecosystem to their own processors. It gives them more control. It has brought the price down of some of these higher end products. You're not spending all this money on third-party licensing and stuff like that when you use somebody else's graphics card or someone else's processors. So it does help on that. And it gives Apple a little bit more control of the whole ecosystem, which we talk about is kind of important, especially in Apple's walled garden. What it means for the casual consumer, I mean, if you're going to go out and buy something today, then buy something with an M3 chip. Does it mean that it made that M2 chip or that M1 chip even obsolete? Absolutely not, because the M1 chip was so ahead of its time and so much faster than what was on the market that other companies are still catching up. And the big important piece of the puzzle here is that Intel is, yes, they've been kind of fledgling behind. So has, other competitors out there, but they're about to make some announcements in the coming months and catch up. So this was Apple's opportunity to get a little bit ahead of that, a little bit ahead of their earnings call, which is happening in a couple days, and have something to talk about as we lead into the holiday season. Is it a pivotal announcement? Not really, but the chips are here and this is where we go.
And let's talk about the MacBooks themselves, because, of course, they announced two new editions, the same models, right? So it's the same design, it's the same style, 14-inch, 16-inch. It does mean, of course, the end of the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which has the touch bar. Good riddance to the touch bar. Thank goodness. Exactly. Goodbye. Get out. But 14-inch, 16-inch, that's the future. And a new color, Mark. A new color, which for some reason, I watched the event and I'm thinking everything up to this point, I'm like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. Then they said it's available in space black, and I'm like, I've got to have one of those. They've been struggling to make a black colored device for quite some time that doesn't either scrape off or get fingerprints all over it. So this is attempt number, I don't know, I'd have to go back and catalog it, but this is yet another attempt at trying to get it out there. And I read one article that said, they need a little bit more than just, doing the chips to identify that there's something new. Whenever a product is launched, a new product is launched that you're going to carry out into the world, there's some kind of identifying feature on it that says, oh, this is the latest and greatest. And this is going to be that standout feature, which is this space black. We'll have to see hands-on. I know you ordered one, so next week maybe we can talk about it and show it on camera and see what that's like. But you know what? I found the new iMacs to be a little bit more significant, because iMacs are these all-in-one computers that are available in all these different colors, no space black, and in everybody's homes. They're kind of like the go-to Mac if you want to get something for your home, that or the Mac Mini, but it has, built-in screen, all-in-one design. So getting this update, because it hasn't been updated in quite some time, to these latest M3 processors is a pretty big deal, because these are the entry-level computers that you want to throw on your kid's desk, that you want to throw in the kitchen and be the centerpiece. And I think those are quite exciting. They are, and of course, like you say, it's an updated processor, same design though, nothing new, same colors as well, so nothing's really changed in terms of the iMac, but the power inside it has. Again though, if you've got that M1 iMac sitting on your table, there's no need to just swipe it off the table, let it fall to the ground and break, and say, do you know what, just forget that trash, let's move on to something new. There's no need for that, right? Because at the end of the day, these machines are still very good. And, you know, I think it's really important to mention that, because I think there's a FOMO, that fear of missing out that comes with all of this.
Oh, yeah.
I know I have it. But we're geeks, that's okay, right? But for average consumers, there's this push to buy more, and it's not always needed.
I should mention something I totally forgot. On the MacBook Pro side, they have this new entry-level one that just has the M3 chip, so it's not an M3 Pro or Ultra or anything. There is another difference on that actual computer. Even though it looks the same, it only has 2 of the Thunderbolt USB-C ports, not 3 like on the higher end, and that's because of just the bandwidth of that chip itself. So that is the other slight difference to that lineup, which is interesting. But you know what, Stephen? Accessibility. I mean, Sarah Herrlinger, you had a great conversation just to start, and we've got more with her coming up in a second. I wanted to remind people about the question of the day, because it's a fun question, and we're getting some great responses on various social medias like Mastodon, for example. So the question is, what one piece of movie tech from our past do you wish came true? And I gotta throw one out here, which is Jarvis. This is the obvious one, you know, Iron Man's AI. So Goku54 writes, Jarvis, having something like that advanced could be really helpful. We'll get to your questions and so much more, but the second part of your conversation with Apple's head of accessibility, Sarah Herrlinger, is coming up next right here on Access Tech Live.
We want to hear from you. Follow us on social media and get involved at Access Tech Live. We'll be right back. The latest in tech and accessibility. This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Welcome back. Now it's time to continue our conversation with Apple's Senior Director of Global Accessibility Policy and Initiatives, Sarah Herrlinger. Now, I wanted to move on to the Mac, because the Mac obviously is a fantastic product, and it has huge accessibility capabilities as well, and a number of similar accessibility features to what's on iPhone. Some people might not realize that. In those accessibility settings, there's lots in there. Live speech is in there. If you've got an M series Mac, a Silicon series Mac, you will be able to use personal voice as well. But another area which is, of course, incredibly powerful for the deaf community is the MFI hearing aid capability, the Bluetooth hearing aid connectivity. That is something I know that Apple has been very keen to improve upon, and you've done that this year with Mac now.
Yeah, I think, touching on a couple things you said in there, absolutely. There's so many great features in the accessibility settings on the Mac as well as in the other areas. Any of our devices, if you go in, the amount of opportunities to be able to customize how you use your device, quite frankly, whether you self-identify as having a disability or not, is huge. There's so many things you can do. And so I encourage everyone to go into the accessibility settings on any of your devices and just play around a little bit and figure out how that customization might benefit you. But yes, with the MFI hearing devices program, now we launched this years ago. Our first foray was back in 2014 in launching the program, and we saw our first devices come online then, and what that allowed was for direct streaming between an iOS device and a hearing aid or a cochlear implant. And it gave crystal clear sound. It gave a lot of ways that you could control your devices from your Apple device, all kinds of things we did. Through the years, we've grown that program to support bidirectional hearing aids, things like that. So this year, we're really excited that we are now able to support those MFI hearing aids with our Macs. And I think this is going to be huge. When you think about so many people who use their Mac for productivity, who will now be able to use their hearing device as they would any other audio format, and be able to just connect directly and get great sound, great functionality right from that. So we're super excited for this to come with Sonoma. It's something that does work with with the bidirectional hearing aids that are made by our partners, and with any of our M2 Macs. So, some really great opportunities there.
Yeah, and a feature which again is available across a number of devices, but I wanted to mention it specifically on Apple TV because I am someone who suffers greatly with light sensitivity, and it's just getting worse and worse. And it's never easy being someone who's light sensitive and their job is to sit in front of bright lights all day. But it's a hard life. I'll get over it. But honestly, the dim flashing lights feature, which came onto Apple TV and also to the iPhone, and I guess other products as well, it's such, again, a simple feature, but a very powerful feature. I've been using adaptive audio on my AirPods Pro 2, which really dulls the sound of loud noises, and this, in a way, does the same for many people who, like me, have light sensitivity, but of course people who are epileptic. They can benefit now from not having that fear when someone says, warning, flash photography. Yeah. The screen will dim now. The screen will actually dim if it senses those bright lights. That's another incredible feature.
Yeah, it is. It's something we're very excited to support individuals for whom that element around light sensitivity is an important deal for them. It does automatically just darken the display of video during sequences of flashing lights. So it's not that it stops it or, takes you out of the moment. It just kind of makes all of that darker and less movement so that you can bypass that without that, and helping to support that sensitivity.
And we've talked before about the subject of support and people getting in touch and feedback, and I know that you guys at Apple always welcome more feedback, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell people the ways that people can get in touch with Apple if they have a comment or a query about an Apple product or service.
Absolutely. The more feedback, the better. We definitely encourage people to connect with us. We've had, as one example, we've had an email address, which is accessibility@apple.com, which has been a public-facing email address for, almost 20 years, maybe over 20 years. I will admit it probably predates me, and I've been here 20 years. So it's certainly been something that has been out there for a long time, and something that we really love, that we get tons of feedback in every day from people who are asking us questions, reporting bugs, letting us know when there might be, something that based on their specific disability or maybe mix of disabilities that they can do one thing, but they can't quite do something else. And we take all of that and it is sent to our engineering teams. We file it all as bugs and make sure that the appropriate teams within Apple see those issues and work to address them. So I always want people to write to us at accessibility@apple.com. But we have other things. One of the other ones to bring up for anyone who might be a member of the deaf community and communicates using sign language, we also have a service called Sign Time, which kind of does two things. It connects customers with one-on-one language interpreting for shopping and support sessions when you're in Apple Care or retail customer support online, or it also supports individuals when they go into our Apple Store locations. So you can go into an Apple Store and tell someone there that you would like to communicate with sign language, and that employee can bring up an app in store which will allow you to be able to communicate with a sign language interpreter through an app without having to book that ahead of time, just being able to come in and use it. And we have this available in many different versions of sign language across the globe. We have this in the US, Canada, UK, France, Japan, let me see if I've got all these, Australia, Germany, Italy, I think Spain and South Korea. That probably covers it. But so it's something that we've really built to be global, understanding that we have customers in the deaf community all over the globe who want to be able to interact with us in the way that works best from them. So this is just another option.
Yeah, and I heard a story just recently. I saw a comment on Twitter, I think it was, or X, as they call it these days, and it was talking about someone who'd gone into a store. I think the person was trading in, and they traded something in, and they said the person who served them was blind. And he was amazed. Not that a blind person could do a job, but the fact that the blind person was using the same equipment as everyone else, doing the job like everyone else. And that's really empowering, right? So it's not just the technology, is it? You're bringing people in from the community. And of course, that can encourage other people going into store as well to get support on voiceover, for example, if someone's blind, or a different product or service, depending on their disability.
Absolutely. I think our key goal with it is to hire the best people for the jobs that we need them for, whether that's in a retail store or in corporate or wherever it might be, and then empower and enable them to do their jobs just like everybody else. And I think by being a company that is creating its own hardware, software, and operating systems, we really do work to infuse that in everywhere we can, so that whether it's inside our own offices or outside in the world, people feel comfortable and capable, and that they're given the opportunity to shine, to be their best.
You say you've been at Apple for 20 years. I don't feel that old personally, so I can say that I've been around a few years. And I remember using my Apple LC2 back at school and playing around with the Newton message pad and all that stuff and thinking, wow, this is incredible. Accessibility has come on leaps and bounds, hasn't it? I mean, in your time, you must have seen so much change, so much improvement over the years.
Yes, I think, even for me, 20 years feels impossible. I would like to say, gosh, I probably started here when I was 4, but that is clearly not the truth. But yeah, I think I've seen amazing things happen, but I think that the core for me about being here at this company, at Apple, is from the minute that I first engaged on accessibility, it was clear to me that it is a value. It is a belief that accessibility is a basic human right. And that is something that has, never stopped in all my time here. For the work that we do, there is an understanding and a commitment and a drive from every Apple employee to want to do more in this area. And I think as part of that, we want to be the ripple in the pond. We want to have what we do hopefully inspire others to understand the importance and to do it as well. And I feel like, over time I've been able to see a lot go on in the world around me, as well as more people in the community, I think, have found their voice and been more vocal in what's important to them. And that in itself has helped create that ripple to get more to happen. So I think the more that we see the communities engage and do more amazing things, it's just the snowball is rolling down that hill and growing every minute.
Sarah Herrlinger, thank you so much for coming back on, and come back soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Apple's Senior Director of Global Accessibility Policy and Initiatives, Sarah Herrlinger. The email address she gave out again, Stephen, is for accessibility is accessibility@apple.com. So you can use that if you've got any concerns whatsoever. Right, Stephen?
Absolutely. What other show on the planet gives this much time to accessibility, Marc?
Well, isn't this the point of existing, isn't it, for us?
Yeah.
Coming up, we're going to review your responses to our question of the day. What one piece of movie tech from our past do you wish came true? We've got a lot of responses, so stick around. This is Access Tech Live.
We want to hear from you. Follow us on social media and get involved at Access Tech Live. We'll be right back. Latest in tech and accessibility. This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Welcome back. This is Access Tech Live. I am Stephen Scott. He is Marc Aflalo. And we're going to dive right into your answers for question of the day. What one piece of movie tech from our past do you wish came true? I've got to say, Mark, this is a great question, and I'm looking forward to the answers. I will save mine till the end.
Oh, okay. I was going to give mine out at first, which was probably Rosie and the Jetsons. I'm surprised no one went there. No one went there with the Jetsons, because that show is so ahead of its time. Or like the folding car into a briefcase. That would have been a fun.
Do you know what? To be fair, I think someone on my Mastodon feed may well have said Jetsons, so I'm going to say someone did.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine. Someone did. Okay, but here's a couple. Okay, the highlights of this. Okay, and you can keep this coming at Access Tech Live or feedback at accesstechlive.com. Ronnie writes us definitely this, and she writes with a picture of the transporter in Star Trek. Now, it didn't surprise me that Star Trek got some good helpful mentions here, but that transporter, can you imagine just closing your eyes and saying, "I'm going to go visit Marc in Montreal"? That would be pretty cool. No complaints there.
No security.
Andre writes,
yeah.
Security, whatever, just Border Patrol, just submit your requests in advance. Andre writes, the shoe phone from Get Smart. Now, I have to argue with that one a little bit, because I think holding my shoe up to my head would be a little bit uncomfortable, but we'll go with it, Andre. We can deal with that.
Especially if it's attached to your feet at the time, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't think I'm that bendy anymore anyway. Wendy writes, this might be my wife, I'm not sure. Cher's Closet from Clueless. That's of course, I don't know if you ever watched that movie, Stephen, but she has this closet where there's a tablet. She picks the clothing, and it's like a laundry turnstile that goes, and it puts the outfit together. That actually, I think a lot of people would benefit from that, including myself, quite honestly.
I think your wife wants that, and that's what I'm getting from that message.
I know my wife wants that. That's not even a question whatsoever. Howard writes us, a flying broom, as in Harry Potter. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah,
I mean, a flying car would be cool too. I mean, I guess that would be pretty neat. A flying broom, a little inconvenient in the bad weather.
Yes, that's right. A bit inclement. Maybe a hat required as well. Yeah.
Oh, come on. Jeremy Rubin writes, there are so many, but this tops my list, though. All food and drink at the press of a button, yes, please. And he posts a picture of, again, Star Trek Replicator. This is, of course, on all the Star Trek, pretty much most of the Star Trek generations, you just summon whatever food you want, and apparently it's good for you. I don't know how good that would be in Scotland, though. I think everything would just be fried. The fried
it already is. So, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, everything's fried already, so we're there.
I mean, there's so many more. I mean, the one that tops my list here is Johnny Five, of course. This is a Jane who wrote on Mastodon. There was a guy in the news recently who built a life-size Johnny Five and takes him out and about to events. I saw a video of that where he went to a convention, and Steve Guttenberg, who was the primary actor in the first Short Circuit movie, was there, and he was just in awe. And he was like rubbing his face and everything, which was kind of crazy. So I wish I had a drum roll. I'll make a drum roll here. What is yours, Stephen? Tell me.
Well, it's from Back to the Future, and I think it was the second movie, if I remember rightly. Maybe it was the first. Okay. I can't remember. It's been a while. But it was the pizza oven. But I think it was like an oven, and you put in this tiny piece of food, and then it would just go ping, and then in like a second, this huge pizza would appear. And I thought it was like a mix between a pizza oven and a microwave. Yeah.
They called it a rehydrator. Remember that? It was the size of like a coin, and it looked like a tiny little mini pepperoni pizza. And it's like oven rehydrator or whatever. And it suddenly came out beautiful, steaming hot. Oh my God, that would have been so much fun.
I mean, obviously, I'm going to take it to the food level. I always do. What about you, Mark?
Well, I definitely think it would have been like the car and Jetsons or Rosie and the Jetsons. I think those are definitely top of my list. We also there was one on Mastodon. I don't remember it exactly verbatim, but he was talking about, he said, I'm 62. And if you could imagine the fact that a 1 megabyte hard drive used to have to fit into an office and now fits onto, a little memory card, my mind would be blown. And he basically goes on to say that, every piece of technology that comes out today is something that they never could have possibly imagined when they were kids. And that's definitely the case.
It was Lynn on Mastodon who posted that. Yeah.
There you go, Lynn on Mastodon. Well, thank you, Lynn. Thank you to everybody else who joined us this week. Thank you for taking part. You can continue to submit your information. Let us know exactly what's exciting you in terms of movie past things that are coming to life. On behalf of Sarah Herrlinger and Stephen Scott, thank you so much for being here this week on Access Tech Live. I am Marc Aflalo. We will speak to you next week, same time, same place. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for tuning in to Access Tech Live. Follow us online at all social media at Access Tech Live. Email us feedback at accesstechlive.com. Hosted by Stephen Scott in Glasgow and Marc Aflalo in Montreal. Written by Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo. Live show director, Anastasia Spalding-Stenhouse. Technical director, Caitlin Robinson. Audio, Jordan Mulgrave. Live graphics and playback, Kingsley Juco. Graphics coordinator, Eliza Rocco. Integrated described video specialist, M. Williams. Supervising producer, Michelle Dudas. Copyright 2023, Accessible Media, Inc.